for that. The future lay wrapped in a golden mist which she did not care to penetrate; but if he, her son, was out of sight and gone, the golden mist became dark heavy gloom, through which no hope could come. He took her hand. "Will you not come with me? Do you not love me enough to trust me? Oh, Ruth!" reproachfully, "can you not trust me?" She had stopped crying, but was sobbing sadly. "I cannot bear this, love. Your sorrow is absolute pain to me; but it is worse to feel how indifferent you are, how little you care about our separation." He dropped her hand. She burst into a fresh fit of crying. "I may have to join my mother in Paris. I don't know when I shall see you again. Oh, Ruth!" said he, vehemently, "do you love me at all?" She said something in a very low voice, but he could not hear it, though he bent down his head; but he took her hand again. "What was it you said, love? Was it not that you did love me? My darling, you do! I can tell it by the trembling of this little hand. Then you will not suffer me to go away alone and unhappy, most anxious about you. There is no other course open to you. My poor girl has no friends to receive her. I will go home directly, and return in an hour with a carriage. You make me too happy by your silence, Ruth." "Oh, what can I do?" exclaimed Ruth. "Mr Bellingham, you should help me, and instead of that you only bewilder me." "How, my dearest Ruth, bewilder you? It seems so clear to me. Look at this case fairly. Here you are, an orphan, with only one person to love you, poor child, thrown off, for no fault of yours, by the only creature on whom you have a claim; that creature a tyrannical, inflexible woman. What is more natural, and being natural more right, than you should throw yourself upon the care of one who loves you dearly, who would go through fire and water for you, who would shelter you from all harm? Unless, indeed, as I suspect, you do not care for him. If so, Ruth, if you do not care for me, we had better part. I will leave you at once. It will be better for me to go, if you do not care for me." He said this very sadly, it seemed so to Ruth at least, and made as though he would have drawn his hand from hers, but now she held it with soft force. "Don't leave me, please, sir. It is very true I have no friend but you. Don't leave me, please. But oh, do tell me what I must do." "Will you do it, if I tell you?" "If you will trust me, I will do my very best for you. I will give you my best advice. You see your position. Mrs Mason writes and gives her own exaggerated account to your guardian. He is bound by no great love to you, from what I have heard you say, and throws you off. I, who might be able to befriend you, through my mother perhaps, I, who could at least comfort you a little, could not I, Ruth? Am away, far away, for an indefinite time. That is your position at present. Now, what I advise is this. Come with me into this little inn. I will order tea for you. I am sure you require it sadly. And I will leave you there, and go home for the carriage. I will return in an hour at the latest. Then we are together. Come what may. That is enough for me. Is it not for you, Ruth? Say yes. Say it ever so low, but give me the delight of hearing it, Ruth. Say yes." Low and soft, with much hesitation, came the yes, the fatal word of which she so little imagined the infinite consequences. The thought of being with him was all and everything. "How you tremble, my darling! You are cold, love. Come into the house, and I'll order tea directly, and be off." She rose, and leaning on his arm, went into the house. She was shaking and dizzy with the agitation of the last hour. He spoke to the civil farmer landlord, who conducted them into a neat parlour, with windows opening into the garden at the back of the house. They had admitted much of the evening's fragrance through their open casements before they were hastily closed by the attentive host. "Tea directly for this lady." The landlord vanished. "Dearest Ruth, I must go. There is not an instant to be lost. Promise me to take some tea, for you are shivering all over, and deadly pale with the fright that abominable woman has given you. I must go. I shall be back in half an hour, and then no more partings, darling." He kissed her pale, cold face, and went away. The room whirled round before Ruth. It was a dream, a strange, varying, shifting dream, with the old home of her childhood for one scene, with the terror of Mrs Mason's unexpected appearance for another; and then, strangest, dizziest, happiest of all, there was the consciousness of his love, who was all the world to her, and the remembrance of the tender words which still kept up their low soft echo in her heart. Her head ached so much that she could hardly see; even the dusky twilight was a dazzling glare to her poor eyes; and when the daughter of the house brought in the sharp light of the candles preparatory for tea, Ruth hid her face in the sofa pillows with a low exclamation of pain. "Does your head ache, miss?" asked the girl, in a gentle, sympathising voice. "Let me make you some tea, miss. It will do you good. Many's the time poor mother's headaches were cured by good strong tea." Ruth murmured acquiescence. The young girl, about Ruth's own age, but who was the mistress of the little establishment owing to her mother's death, made tea, and brought Ruth a cup to the sofa where she lay. Ruth was feverish and thirsty, and eagerly drank it off, although she could not touch the bread and butter which the girl offered her. She felt better and fresher, though she was still faint and weak. "Thank you," said Ruth. "Don't let me keep you. Perhaps you are busy. You have been very kind, and the tea has done me a great deal of good." The girl left the room. Ruth became as hot as she had previously been cold, and went and opened the window, and leant out into the still, sweet evening air. The bush of sweetbriar underneath the window scented the place, and the delicious fragrance reminded her of her old home. I think scents affect and quicken the memory more than either sights or sound, for Ruth had instantly before her eyes the little garden beneath the window of her mother's room, with the old man leaning on his stick watching her, just as he had done not 3 hours before on that very afternoon. "Dear old Thomas! He and Mary would take me in, I think. They would love me all the more if I were cast off, and Mr Bellingham would perhaps not be so very long away, and he would know where to find me if I stayed at Milham Grange. Oh, would it not be better to go to them? I wonder if he would be very sorry. I could not bear to make him so sorry, so kind as he has been to me. But I do believe it would be better to go to them, and ask their advice, at any rate. He would follow me there, and I could talk over what I better do, with the 3 best friends I have in the world, the only friends I have." She put on her bonnet, and opened the parlour door, but then she saw the square figure of the landlord standing at the open house door, smoking his evening pipe, and looming large and distinct against the dark air and landscape beyond. Ruth remembered the cup of tea she had drunk. It must be paid for, and she had no money with her. She feared that he would not let her quit the house without paying. She thought that she would leave a note for Mr Bellingham, saying where she was gone, and how she had left the house in debt. For, like a child, all dilemmas appeared of equal magnitude to her, and the difficulty of passing the landlord while he stood there, and of giving him an explanation of the circumstances, as far as such explanation was due to him, appeared insuperable, and as awkward and fraught with inconvenience as far more serious situations. She kept peeping out of her room, after she had written her little pencil note, to see if the outer door was still obstructed. There he stood, motionless, enjoying his pipe, and looking out into the darkness which gathered thick with the coming night. The fumes of the tobacco were carried by the air into the house, and brought back Ruth's sick headache. Her energy left her; she became stupid and languid, and incapable of spirited exertion.